This is the Capitol Rundown.
Invest that $50 million into securing the border, maybe actually increasing that number.
And only 28% of voters could successfully say that inflation over the past year had been 4% or less.
Republican colleagues voted against protecting our freedom.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Jorma Duran. It may be a holiday weekend, but there's still a lot to talk about in the world of Michigan politics, so let's get started. We began with President-elect Donald Trump's threat of tariffs against America's biggest trading partners, Canada, Mexico, and China, that would have far-reaching effects, including on an important part of the Michigan economy. Our Washington correspondent Raquel Martin explains.
President-elect Trump says all three countries are simply not doing enough to stop the flow of illegal immigration and also fentanyl into the U.S. But economists warn that if he follows through on these threats, Americans could be paying higher prices on everything from electronics to cars to fuel.
And what we're talking about here are massive tax increases that will hit American businesses and American consumers.
The National Taxpayers Union is sounding the alarm. President-elect Donald Trump announcing on his first day in office, he's slapping a 25% tax on imports from Canada and Mexico.
They're not just going to sit there and take it. They're going to strike back at our companies.
Already, Mexico's president promises to hit back and threaten tariffs on U.S. goods. She insists Mexico has cracked down on border crossings. But on True Social, Trump warns the tariffs will go into effect unless Mexico and Canada do more to stop the flow of drugs and illegal immigration. Writing, quote, thousands of people are pouring through.
What happened over the past 4 years was unprecedented.
Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott and Trump's newly appointed border czar took the president-elect's message to the southern border Tuesday.
Let me be clear. There is going to be a mass deportation.
At the northern border, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is taking a diplomatic approach.
I had a good call with Donald Trump last night.
He says their trade teams are planning meetings. Trump is also threatening 10% tariffs on Chinese imports for their production of fentanyl. A spokesperson with the Chinese embassy responded, tweeting, "No one will win a trade war." For now in Washington, Raquel Martin, back to you.
If those tariffs go into effect, people looking to buy a new vehicle likely would see big price increases as well, and that would be felt here in Michigan. About 15% of the 15.6 million new vehicles sold in the U.S. last year came from Mexico. About 8% crossed the border from Canada, according to global data. And according to one analysis, Volkswagen, Stellantis, GM, and Ford would be hit the hardest.
By some accounts, a vehicle can cross the border more than 7 times before it hits the auto lot. So these are fully integrated supply chains. That also means that no particular production site keeps in inventory everything that it needs for production. So if we are going to levy tariffs, an unprecedented increase in the amount of work that our customs people have to do, we would probably see disruptions in many of the plants that are operating in the United States, as well as those in Canada and Mexico.
Some business experts and Trump supporters in Congress are speculating that this is just a negotiating tactic the president-elect will use to get concessions from these nations, but that doesn't mean there won't be an impact here at home.
Tariffs overall do have a big cost, even if they're not applied, and that is just this increase in uncertainty about the seriousness and reliability of U.S. commercial policy.
Now, if prices on goods do increase for American consumers, it would be a sharp contrast to Mr. Trump's campaign promises to make life more affordable. Well, coming up next on the Capitol Rundown, critics of how Governor Gretchen Whitmer is spending these last few weeks before Republicans retake the State House are speaking out. But first, Democrats and activists recently organized in Detroit to send a message to Lansing about getting more work done. That story and much more when we return. The Michigan legislature is now in its lame duck session. Democrats will control the House for just a few more weeks, and then Republicans take it back in January. But black lawmakers and advocates say there's not enough work being done. Here's Ellie Myers with a look at what they're asking for before Democrats lose the majority.
Keep it real. Keep it real. Pass the bill. Pass the bill. Keep it real. Keep it real. Pass the bill. Pass the bill.
Black lawmakers and advocates gathered in downtown Detroit on Monday to urge lawmakers in Lansing to get to work during the lame duck session.
That means committee hearings. That means getting, putting bills up for a vote. Just having opportunity for the black agenda to be heard.
McKinney tells me there are upwards of 40 bill packages that could see movement before power shifts on Capitol Avenue, but haven't yet.
We need Republicans to come on board too. So this is a everybody issue. We need everybody to show up to work on both sides, and it's not partisan, to be honest with you. We got to get this thing done, and we have to do the right thing.
It's bills like reforms for auto no fault, second look legislation, bills on maternal health, and improvements to the price of auto insurance, just to name a few, that organizer Sherry Gay Dagnogo tells me haven't seen any movement.
I can't say why that is. Maybe the governor can speak to why that is. Maybe Joe Tate can speak to why that is, but it's unacceptable whatever the reason is.
Michigan Speaker of the House Joe Tate pushed back against the claims that bills haven't moved as quickly during this legislative session.
When you look at the total volume of impactful legislation, I will stand this legislative session up against any other previous legislative sessions, just to talk about the direct impact that it's had on people's lives.
And just like the state legislature, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is also in a lame duck term. Our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic is taking a look at her priorities in the immediate future and what some critics are saying.
Is the governor disengaged from the process?
Feels like it. I mean, you can only say yes, right?
Yeah, I have continued to have an open dialogue with the leaders of all four caucuses.
Those comments from Governor Whitmer came just after the election. More recently, these Democratic and Republican consultants are watching what the governor has done so far in the lame duck. And, well, they're critical of her performance.
2024 Gretchen Whitmer is not the same as the 2018 Gretchen Whitmer. She was the one that was saying, I'm going to fix the roads, I'm going to fill the potholes, I'm going to take care of the day-to-day, as she would say, kitchen table issues. The 2024 Gretchen Whitmer is the Dorito video, is positioning for something after Michigan. She has to come back and take charge of what's happening there.
Mr. Heeman was reminded that the governor has said she's working with lawmakers and the legislative leaders.
And so I would anticipate that we'll get a number of things done during lame duck.
What are her priorities other than handing out a bag of money to get a chips factory? What are her legislative priorities? What does she want to see this legislature pass before the end of the year? I don't think we know the answer to that question. I don't think most lawmakers do either. And that legislature is thirsty for her leadership.
The two critics will have a chance to evaluate the governor's performance on the road fix issue, as now the House Republican leader, the incoming Speaker Matt Hall, has proposed a road fix plan without a tax increase. They are willing to talk to Mr. Hall and anyone else who wants to seriously work on her signature issue, an issue that she introduced during her first year in office, was defeated, and never reintroduced in the legislative process, although she did pass a bonding program to fix the roads. Here for you in Lansing, Tim Skubic.
Coming up, we'll tell you about a Michigan elected official who plans to serve part of his term from inside a prison cell. But first, Donald Trump's own legal troubles are coming to an end, at least for now. That and much more is coming up next. President-elect Donald Trump's victory at the ballot box on November 5th means he is now getting a victory in the courts as well. Christian Benavidez has more details from West Palm Beach, Florida.
The Department of Justice filed a motion Monday to dismiss all 4 felony charges against President-elect Donald Trump for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election in the lead-up to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Special counsel Jack Smith said in the court filing that the government's position on Trump's guilt has not changed, but Trump's election sets at odds 2 fundamental national interests. He wrote, on the one hand, the Constitution's requirement that the president must not be unduly encumbered in fulfilling his weighty responsibilities, and on the other hand, the nation's commitment to the rule of law and the long-standing principle that no man in this country is so high that he is above the law. Hours later, federal judge Tanya Chutkan approved the special counsel's request. The dismissal ends Trump's long and expensive court battle. He's claiming victory and is preparing to overhaul how the Department of Justice works. In a statement, Trump's spokesman called it a victory for the rule of law and added, President Trump wants an immediate end to the political weaponization of our justice system, and we look forward to uniting our country. Trump has said he intends to nominate former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi to be his AG and tasked her with changing the DOJ. Special Counsel Smith is expected to resign before Trump takes office.
And while we're talking about crime and politics, one recently re-elected county official here in Michigan has taken the oath of office for another term, but face-to-face meetings with his constituents are unlikely. That's because Monroe County Commissioner Mark Brandt will be in federal prison. Brandt was sentenced in September to 18 months in prison for letting land he owned in Michigan be used to grow marijuana, which was then distributed in Ohio. He pleaded guilty. He was a serving commissioner at the time and resigned, but his name stayed on the ballot, and on this past election day, he won. Brandt says he has no plans to resign and will collect a $15,000 salary. Well, next on the rundown, we'll hear from our Capitol correspondent on the latest in Michigan politics, including one area where state Republican leadership says they'll listen to the governor's ideas. That's coming up right after the break. Governor Gretchen Whitmer wanted to fix the roads, and while there are a lot of orange barrels out there, some say more can be done. Well, now, soon-to-be State House Speaker Matt Hall wants to talk about that. Right now, Republicans are planning to change Michigan's gas tax so that money goes to road upkeep instead of where it goes now, public schools. At the same time, Mr. Hall says the plan isn't to cut school funding and will negotiate with Democrats on a solution. For more on this story, the Rundown's Megan Vaselli talked to our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic. They talked about that more from the world of Michigan politics.
It's time to get updated politically here in Michigan, and who better than Tim Skubic. Tim, Governor Gretchen Whitmer was famous for campaigning on fixing the roads. As Republicans get ready to take control of the state house, they're talking about their own road funding plans. What are you hearing so far?
Well, first of all, Megan, hope you had a nice Thanksgiving and hope everybody had a safe weekend as we move into the holiday season. And we're moving into the lame duck season in the Michigan legislature. And you raise a very good question. If you go back to when the governor was not governor and she ran for election, remember it was fix the roads? I left out the you-know-what. Anyway, she made a proposal, 45-cent gas tax increase. It failed miserably. And ever since then, legislatively speaking, the governor has not had a plan on the table to fix the roads. She did have a bonding proposal, which did part of the job, but wasn't a permanent fix. Well, now comes the new House Republican majority starting in the new year, and Matt Hall, who's the Speaker-elect, says, you know what? The governor doesn't have a plan, but I do, so here it is. So he's thrown it on the table. Basically, it is revenue neutral. It is not a gas tax increase. It is not any kind of an increase. They're basically stealing money from Peter to pay Paul, and the governor and the Democrats have said, you know what, let's talk about this. So they have precious little time to do this as they try to get out of here by the end of the year in the holiday season, but I think there's a glimmer of hope that they might actually have a bipartisan solution on fixing the roads. Talk about a holiday gift for all the motorists out there. It could happen. Then again, it couldn't. And when it does either way, Megan, we'll let you know. Stay tuned.
All right, Tim, thank you. Now, we did see your story earlier about the governor facing criticism over her priorities in the Democrats' lame duck session. What is their agenda right now, and where does the governor fit into that?
Yeah, well, here's the question, and this story comes right in the middle of Governor being out of the country in Spain trying to bring back jobs to Michigan. The criticism is that the governor has not set forth her priorities for this lame duck session. Now, she's done it privately, but she hasn't done it publicly. And a couple of consultants in town said, you know, the governor, she needs to be more engaged, that right now the legislature needs her leadership. She contends she is leading. She has met with the quadrant leaders. She has met with the Democrats and Republicans, and she says she's engaged. Some critics say she is not. The two sides will agree to disagree, and we'll see what kind of fruit they can bear in this lame duck session as they limp to the first of the year.
Well, coming up, outgoing presidents usually pardon convicted criminals before they leave office, and President Biden is no exception. We'll tell you who got the reprieve when we come back, so stay tuned. Two turkeys from the Midwest traveled to Washington for a trip of a lifetime before Thanksgiving Day. Peach and Blossom made the 16-hour trip to the White House Monday, where they received a special presidential pardon from the commander-in-chief. The birds were raised on a farm in Northfield, Minnesota, but named after the Delaware state flower. President Biden commented on his time in office as he carried out the final turkey pardon of his presidency.
In the last 4 years, I've had the honor to continue that tradition by pardoning Peanut Butter and Jelly, Chocolate and Chip, Liberty and Bell, and today, Peach and Blossom will join the free birds of the United States of America. Based on your temperament and commitment to being productive members of society, I hereby pardon Peach and Blossom.
Peach and Blossom will live out the rest of their lives at A Farm America in southern Minnesota to serve as educational ambassadors and inspire the next generation of agriculture students. And if you're interested in getting more political news from Michigan and Washington, they've got just the thing. You can sign up for our Capitol Rundown newsletter. It's just one email each week, and you can get it by pointing your cell phone camera at the screen right now. It'll take you to the sign-up page, or you can head to WLNS.com/newsletters. And that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown.